it's not that high risk when you come in with a strategy.
Yep.
And a strategy needs to be, don't come in here and just do 1-2 deals. Come in and do 10 to 15.
A list or anything, right?
I can't go to Russia.
Buying AT&T with a 5% dividend and holding it for 30 years and wasn't my idea of investing. And I know Warren Buffett probably just threw up over that, but I throw up when he speaks, but that's okay.
So you know that, and one of the only unspoken rules on Shark Tank, because there's a few things that people like guess. They're like, is it really real? I truly believe that the sharks have no idea who is coming on.
White Marlin, which is our Belgian wit. It's everything Blue Moon wishes it was.
Nice.
It's made with Natalie's orange juice, which is very fortunate to have Natalie's
is it
OJ
really?
across the street from us.
People love to like get around you when you've had the victory. Very few people celebrate you on the way. Very few people come around you and like learn from you in the journey, right? I think that's where your most valuable content is.
Welcome to the Legacy Angel Network Venture Lounge, where nothing ventured is nothing changed. For Matt Helmintoller, press 1. For member services, press 2. For real raw startup stories, press 3. For all other questions or concerns, please wait on the line in our...
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Helmintoller, and you're listening to Venture Lounge, after-hour conversations with founders and investors. These are the stories, insights, and conversations that you aren't going to find on the company website. Because the real lessons you learn in the startup world, the risks you take as an entrepreneur, the highs and the lows, the moments in your journey when no one else believes in you right before you break through. Those are the moments that you just have to hear for yourself. So grab a drink and listen in to the men and women who are changing the world. Welcome to the Venture Lounge.
There's a lot of different tools that you can leverage to try to overcome that fear. But I think as long as you feel like you've got people who've got your back, you can make the jump and you'll solve all the problems.
That's gold.
From an investor perspective, this isn't that scary of a space. And it's not that high risk when you come in with a strategy.
Yep.
And a strategy needs to be, don't come in here and just do 1-2 deals. Come in and do 10 to 15.
Thank you.
You have to.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
You got to do like 10 to 15 deals.
Yes.
You're going to come in here. You'll maybe join you guys for like 3 investments that you were super pumped about, and they all crash and burn. You're like, it's a terrible investment strategy. Is that early stage? That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. It's you try to mitigate risk as much as you can when you're vetting the deals, looking at the founders, looking at the market potential, how are you going to scale, what's the use of funds, blah, 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 right? All the DD stuff.
Right.
But I would say it's more predictable when you're doing, say, 10 to 15 investments over a, call it 3-year time period. You can almost predict an ROI on that of some sort of multiple more than you probably can a public market right now.
100%.
Because the public markets are just, first of all, they're manipulated.
Yep.
And they are crap right now because everything's overvalued. So work with a group, set the valuation at a reasonable amount, give them the tools and support they need to grow, and then do a dozen of those, and then in 5 years, decide whether or not it's risky. It's not. It's
everything you just said is so freaking true. So what you just said about the capital markets, right? I know people right now in Manhattan who can pick up the phone and steer a stock price
100%.
like that. I mean, up or down, whatever they're told to do.
Yeah.
They do it with one phone call.
Oh, of course they do it.
Yeah, and it's
in their interest of their hedge fund.
It's a little, and I was talking too. I mean, I know a lot of financial advisors. By the time they're getting the information, right? People have already made their millions.
100%.
By the time these financial advisors are getting their information to make other people have already made it's crazy.
Now, I am by no means saying don't invest.
Agreed.
In capital markets. I have a lot of money there too, right?
Yeah.
It's a diversification philosophy.
Yep.
The only thing that I'm saying is take that disposable income and play with that 10% of your disposable and come up with a strategy. Say, okay, I've got, let's say it's 10% disposable income. Let's say that's maybe $100,000 a year disposable, right? Just for round numbers sake. And so now I'm going to make a commitment that I only invest $25,000 to $50,000 a year until I've hit 10 to 12 investments, and just stay consistent. Don't get too excited about anything, because you'll end up doing like, 100,000. I think it's like consistency, 25,000 or 50,000 or 100,000, whatever that number is, but have like a strategy to get you to a dozen investments. And you know, you got to vet them and make sure you're comfortable with whatever it is you're putting your money into, and you can pass on some deals. But that I feel like is how I've stayed consistent. And now we have, you know, our portfolio value is in the black right now if you look at what our equity valuation is for what's converted. And we've already made an exit in 2020, which is, we're hoping to do so in the next 18 months with one or two others. But we're talking about one or two others that pay for everything else. So I think going into a down year, going into like a recession type environment, if that's what it's going to be, or stagflation is what they're calling it, right? This is actually going to have an uptick because you actually know what you're buying, you know? And you don't have to worry about what the interest rates are doing. You don't have to worry about overvaluation of some of the public markets. And so I think it's a good spot.
That's actually the first time I've publicly talked about the whole kidnapping thing.
You know, it's a very calm place, a very safe place.
Like, pretty much everyone involved in that is not alive, so I don't feel like there's anyone getting upset by talking about it.
We don't want you getting in trouble or anything, man, but
FBI watching me.
you're not like on a list or anything, right?
I can't go to Russia.
It's like, this guy knows way too much
Yeah,
about weapons.
I don't even remember no Russian level. You know, the whole remember, no Russia. Or, I mean, remember, no Russian. Remember from Modern Warfare 2? Where they, I'm on their shit list.
That did it, huh? It didn't take that much.
That was my roommate. That we can talk. Are we rolling?
We know. Just keep going.
All right.
Yeah,
you remember no Russian?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that was my roommate's idea. And I thought he was crazy at first, but then it made sense. So just to give the backstory, at the time, maybe still, like maybe the most shocking scene, like violent scene in a video game, right? And the whole idea is within the story of Modern Warfare 2, you had this Russian ultranationalist that wanted to bring Russia back to its former glory. Sounds kind of familiar. And basically they set up, there was 3 or 4 Russians that pretended to be Americans in the story plot line, and they went into the Moscow airport and just started mowing people down. And normally these kind of plot points are just like loading screen text, right? It's just something you tell the player, this really horrible, tragic thing happened, and then players are like, I don't care, you know, like, oh, I read some things that happened, bad things happen, okay, whatever. There's no emotion. So really the only way to emotionally impact people in the way that they should be impacted is to actually put them there in that experience.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want horrible things to just always happen without there being any feeling from the player. Like one of the things that we wanted to do with the Modern Warfare series is make people feel uncomfortable. Like the C-130 levels were supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because it's so disconnected, you know? And so to further that story, you are an American who's pretending to be Russian while the Russians are pretending to be Americans. And so you're infiltrating their little group, and you go to this elevator, and the doors open, and there's, you know, like Russian TSA, and they just start getting mowed down by the Russians. And it's the only level in the entire game, and any of the games I worked on, where you can get through without shooting a single person, which is the ironic thing, because you could actually shoot around people and pretend that you're shooting people at the Russian airport and finish the level as long as they believe that you're actually doing it, right? You just have to act it. But in the end, doesn't matter how you play it. Makarov, who's like the head Russian dude, he just shoots you at the end because they knew the whole time that you're an undercover American. And so that level got leaked before the game was out with zero context. I mean, even with context, it's very shocking. But
how
imagine
does that even happen? Like, how does something like that get leaked?
I think it was one of the media people had a video or something. I'm not even sure. I don't remember how it happened. But yeah, it got
Is there
leaked.
someone that we need to hunt down? That's the question we're
Yeah,
asking.
I
It's
wouldn't
really
mess with the Russians.
No. I mean the person who leaked it. I mean,
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Connor knows some pretty shady people in Portsmouth.
Yeah. Some guy in a double wide out in Acton. I tell you what, reckon. But yeah, so that got leaked, and I remember BBC News was all over it. At the time I was traveling, I was in the UK. It was actually the first time a game had been revealed at Leicester Square, which is like their Hollywood in the UK. And BBC was like grilling me on like this violent level. The Parliament was meeting today about banning it and all this stuff. And I think just that week before, they were like voting on drone strikes and killing actual people. So I'm just like, look, guys, this is a video game. It's a story. I know it's shocking. You can pass you can actually skip the level. I think it was the first two of the first game where we're like, this is a very shocking level. Do you want to skip it? And you can say yes and not even play that entire level.
Man, how are you? Yeah, especially in the heat of the moment. That's wild, Leicester Square and everything. Like, how were you combating that or dealing with like the flood of questions that you're getting from people and the ethics of it and everything? You know what I mean? Like,
it isn't back then. I mean, there's been a lot of studies since then, and overwhelmingly show that video games do not cause people to be violent. Right.
right.
Back then, there were a few, and I would point to those. But honestly, through media training. And, with Activision, they want you to speak to a Activision rep, which is good because I didn't have to answer it. But in general now, if it comes up, which doesn't come up very often now, like violence in video games, I just point to the studies. Like, hey, give me your email. I can send you a bunch of studies, over 20 years or so that show that there's not a link. So.
Wow. It's a weird moment to like see something on TV and then like be in it. You're like, this is crazy. I'm here and it looks exactly like it looks on TV. And so you have to walk out there. You have to stand there in an awkward like 60-second pause while they get their cameras adjusted. And then the producer says begin, and you give your pitch, which is the only part that's scripted. Like, your pitch inside and out. You write it, you rehearse it. You could do it in your sleep. You could do it forwards, backwards. That first segment where you're telling your pitch and your company, and then all bets are off. It's like, okay, Sharks, go with the Q&A.
Did you practice your pitch in front of your parents or in front of some friends, or did you just like rock it in the mirror in your bedroom? How did you practice your pitch?
Nonstop. I practiced my pitch nonstop. I had people. She gets too forward. You just let her know that she
you want
can.
to say something into the mic? You want to talk to everybody?
You're a good girl, Pipe. You can sit.
Yeah.
She's the sweetest dog in the world. I love her so much.
A better view than
so
me.
Piper came with me and to LA, and she gave a live demonstration, and the Sharks loved it. But yeah, I was practicing that pitch. It was on repeat in my head, and it's only like 90 seconds, so that was a very fast loop. I was grabbing people and pulling them into a conference room and delivering the pitch. And, you kind of have to keep it a secret that you're going on to the show. So, like, only certain people could know at that time. And I'm sure they got tired of hearing me do the pitch over and over. So that, and one of the only unspoken rules on Shark Tank, because there's a few things that people, like, guess. They're like, is it really real? I truly believe that the Sharks have no idea who is coming on, because I was about 30 minutes into the Q&A when I realized how much there was to unpack about my company and how much they didn't. They just had you don't know.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So they don't have any clue who's coming into the tank. And at the same time, too, there's no cut, action, redo that, re-say that, nothing. It is one shot, continuous, no stopping, no starting.
Wow.
So one of the only unspoken rules is that you get to deliver your pitch. So you get to go in, you get to give your 90-second pitch. The Sharks aren't supposed to start asking you questions until you're finished. Like, they let you deliver your pitch. And then the gloves come off and they can ask you whatever they want about your company. And so I ended up being in there for almost an hour and a half. It didn't feel like that. When I came out, I asked one of the producers, like, that felt like it went by so fast. It was like 20 minutes. They're like, girl, you were in there for almost an hour. But time flies, right? Yeah. And it was a blur. And then when it airs, it's also extremely surreal because then you've sat on the secret for half of a year. You haven't told anybody. And my investors knew, my team knew, like there's certain people who can know. And then even them, I didn't tell a soul, not even my boyfriend, who was a little upset about that fact. He's like, you could have told me. I didn't tell anybody about the golden ticket. And here's why. It's because I was like, what happens if they edit that out? I don't know why my brain thought that way, but my brain was like, what if they don't show the golden ticket?
Wow, yeah.
It's just that, it's that fear of like, it's that constant fear of like, is it good enough? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Right? That like whole internal debate. So I kept the golden ticket a secret. But what I thought was amazing, when I went into Shark Tank, all I knew was who my panel would be. And I learned that a few days before going out there. I knew I was going to have the OG panel. I was going to have Mark and then Damon and then Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and then Lori and then Robert. Wow. So when I found out who my panel was going to be, I did research. And I thought my two best opportunities was going to be either Damon or Robert. Damon because he's a dog owner. He's a dog dad. And he gets the branding side of stuff. And Robert because not only is he a dog parent, but he has Malinois. I was like, talk about a high energy dog that needs swift paws. And so I thought he's going to get it. He's going to understand the need. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, I would love, love, love to work with Lori. But my thought was, it's going to be too niche for her. I thought, I hope she's going to love me and what I'm doing. And I'm sure she's going to be very complimentary. But I thought, there's no way that she's going to see just how big I think this opportunity is. And I must have done something right, but by the time I got to the point where I got the offer, I was preparing myself to walk away with no offer. Is that at that point, right? So in some of it, we talk about community and wanting to build Swift Paws here in Brevard County. I made that clear. I shared the whole story. I shared the story about my former partner and buying him out and the ups and the downs. I mean, they ask, it's 5 very savvy investors who know exactly what to ask to flesh out the good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, you only see a few minutes on TV, but they get really deep really quickly. And so I think Kevin was the first to go out maybe, and he was basically said, if I was, kudos to you, but if I was going to come into this business, I would be farming it all out overseas and changing it up. And he's like, it seems like that's not what you want to do. And so I'm not the right partner for you. And so probably even to the detriment of maybe losing a potential offer is how much I care about continuing to grow here and having an impact here. Could I possibly get this cheaper if I made it entirely overseas? Maybe. But if I can do it here and I can grow here and it still makes business sense, that's what I want to be doing. Yeah. So I never ignore a resource or a potential. Like we get some materials from overseas. There's certain things that actually I can't find. Hey, if anybody knows of a motor manufacturer in the US that'll make a tiny little RC motor for me, you let me know. But so I have no problem using international resources. And some of my best partnerships, like with EMCA, the company that I do my plastics with, it's a German company. Our plastics come from Bosnia. I'm so proud of that fact. But to the degree that I can, I will have as much of it here as I can.
I will invest in companies that have revenue, have management, do things the right way, that are growing their bottom line. And, I tell people all the time, they're like, well, you started a company. I said, I really didn't start a company. I started what I already knew.
Right.
So I knew the financial services businesses. So I went out and, I already had 200 clients.
Right.
So I could start my own company, take those 200 clients and grow their assets. But eventually what we found as it grew was it was boring. Buying AT&T with a 5% dividend and holding it for 30 years, and it wasn't my idea of investing. And I know Warren Buffett probably just threw up over that, but I throw up when he speaks, but that's okay.
If Warren ever starts to watch this show, I'm definitely thinking.
How do you, people used to ask me, how do you say what you say about Warren Buffett and he's one of the wealthiest men in the world? I said, Warren Buffett trades on insider trading information, which is, by the way, illegal. And people are like, why, what do you mean? Do you not think that every company that he wants to invest in gives him every informational piece possible for him to invest $1 billion? And if you don't think they give it to him, you're only kidding yourself.
Jim, I heard the other day that the Pelosi's have a higher success rate with their investment than Warren Buffett did.
Who?
The Pelosi's, like where like with that whole act.
That's because, well, there's no doubt.
What do you make of that, Jim? What do you make of that?
Get him rolling. Spin him up. Wind him up.
I can talk about them all. I mean, Jim Cramer wrote a book. He confessed in his book that he had insider trading information when he ran his hedge fund. You can't have that much money to invest that they don't tell you something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Fidelity. I've been to Fidelity many, many times, and I love people there. George Van Hart is one of my favorite portfolio managers of all time. Peter Lynch was there when I was around. All those guys that paved the way. I went to Fidelity one time, and I'm in their boardroom and talking to some of their portfolio managers. I'm looking in the hallway, and there's like CEOs of American Airlines, Delta, all filing down the hallway. I'm like, why are they here? Oh, we're having an investment conference. What do you think they're spilling in the conference? You think Delta's going, oh yeah, we're gonna have a shitty quarter. Don't invest with us. We're gonna lose money this quarter. They're gonna say, hey, we need 30 new planes. We have access to this funding. We need more money to do this. Is it insider information? Theoretically, yes. Technically, no. But at the end of the day, money begets data. So if you have money, people bring you data. And so we went the other route. We started investing in real estate. We did development projects. We did a lot of things over the years, but we found ways to get out of just the mainstream. One of my favorite things was to buy a piece of real estate and help small businesses own the real estate. So we would rent it to them, give them a right to buy it back from us in 3 years. We did a lot of things to help entrepreneurs. Restaurant owners, why do they fail? Why do they have such a high rate of failure? The reason is they don't own the real estate. If you go downtown right here, right now, outside of Meg's, who owns their property? Matt's Casbah did, but they sold out to who? Right. Meg's.
Right, to Meg's. Yep.
So you go down, so if I'm renting my property, the property owner has the right to raise your rent when your lease is due. So there's 3 main variables in a restaurant that control the value: rent, food, labor. So if I give up control of food because commodity prices drive food, labor prices drive labor, and if I give up the control of the third piece, I now have no control of my business. So what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels. So what are the most successful real estate? Why did McDonald's, Behind the Golden Arches, the book that was written by Ray Kroc, how did they get that? They bought the real estate. McDonald's became a multi-billion-dollar company because of real estate, not because of hamburgers. Hamburgers paid for the real estate.
Are we sure that they're actually hamburgers? They're actually meat?
They used to be.
We're not sure, actually.
When the McDonald's brothers owned it, it was.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you talk about like what brews do you have out in distribution right now? Like if you rent down the list.
Yeah, so our flagship is our IPA, Sunrise City. Sunrise City is the nickname of Fort Pierce. Say nickname, it's it's what it's bestowed as, I guess we're gonna call it. But again, this sells our #1 seller everywhere we go in the state. So you can pretty much get this statewide with all of our wholesalers. That's like our one we do for everybody. In our local market, we have White Marlin, which is our Belgian wit. It's everything Blue Moon wishes it was.
Nice.
It's made with Natalie's orange juice, which is very fortunate to have Natalie's OJ
really?
across the street from us. So we get.
So that's some craft brewery trash talk right there.
No, they're not really craft brewery, so
Yeah.
The Natalie's orange juice plug is the orange juice plug is really cool. That's like we took a 6-pack of that to the beach with the girls one day.
Dude, that wit's amazing.
Yeah, man, really good. My granddad got a 6-pack just being down in the Fort Pierce area.
Nice,
you know
nice,
what I mean?
yeah.
So,
No, it's a great, just a great morning beer, honestly. You know, good part of the day, golfing, boating, fishing.
It's really got that beer mosa kind of taste.
No, we do beer mosa in the tap room. It's amazing. So it's really cool. And then we have what's kind of nicknamed now the old guys beer. It's our amber. So tag and release. Tag and release is great. One of the first beers we started doing. You know, growing up in Florida, South Florida, grew up fishing, offshore fishing. So we developed a relationship with Billfish Foundation, which is a philanthropy to kind of promotes and educates and lobbies against in conservation of big game fish. So we do proceeds of that beer towards their foundation every year. But it's a great amber. It's just a nice, easy drink craft. And all breweries do craft ambers or ambers, period. So it's a nice alternative to Yingling and Fat Tire. You know,
It's a very nice beer.
As soon as we launched it, every Fat Tire handle went away. So it was taken by that. So our lager, which we just rebranded, is awesome. Just a nice Hellas lager, crisp, clean. Run it through the centrifuge and the plate filter, so like it pours crystal clear, and just a nice 4.8% well-balanced lager. And then we have our pale ale, so Fish Whistle. Fish Whistles is great. We've been doing this beer for a long time. We finally launched it in package last year in 16 ounce. It's a very targeted convenience grab and go, 16 ounce can. And it's got a great story. And we hired or worked with Steve Diassi, who does a lot of marine art, and to do the can label. And you probably see the can up there. You've probably seen it before, but he did the can label for us because he has a really kind of a cartoonish play on fish. And do you guys know what a fish whistle is? Okay, so fish whistle, if you're out fishing and you're not catching anything, you want to waste some time, you light up a joint, burn a joint, that's what brings the fish in. As soon as you light it up, so they call it the fish whistle. So the can's really cool. It's got a nice character to it.
Awesome,
so
yeah, man.
But it's things have to have a story. Like that's the uniqueness of it, and like it's kind of like if you know kind of thing. We're not obviously writing that in the can,
right?
Because of certain retailers might never bring it in, but it's it's subtle enough where if you know, and if you pay attention to the lure on that can being cast, you'll notice something.
Well, sharing that story, you might get some additional customers.
That's the goal. It's a nice, honestly, it's a nice sessionable pale ale. Not too bitter, obviously, with it being a pale, and it's one of my go-tos, honestly, nowadays. Because as I've gotten older, I've watched my styles change, and I'm more of a pale ale lager person now, honestly, just from a sit-down session. But I'll sit down and crush. The problem is I'll crush like 3 of these very quickly, and it's not the best for you if you're trying to run a business and do everything else at the same time too. So
I've actually seen you and hung out with you several times. I don't know that I've ever even seen you drink a beer. But I think that's because it was all business, right?
Probably. I know some of the social things. I've usually had a beer in my hand, but I'll typically crack one and just drink half of it and just kind of hold on to it. And when it's empty, I still hold on to it. Just people think I'm drinking.
There is that balance, like when you're the boss, and then like you're also in the social thing, but you still got to be on your game.
Oh no!
Like it's
your group, your social group becomes so small because so many people can see you after a few drinks anymore.
Right?
Because it's small, and then you freaking go out now, and it's like everybody knows you, and it's just like how do you hide? So you're trying to find these getaway places where no one knows who you are and go in disguise.
Pretty cool, man. I like hearing the stories behind all those. So, first podcast, it's obligatory that we talk about the podcast. So let's just start with maybe a little bit into what your goal, what the goals are here. I'll just say initially we talked about having these real raw startup stories, essentially. This kind of long form content that's we really want to have conversations with people, things that you're not getting on someone's website,
right.
Like the real working behind the scenes kind of stuff. And I think this platform allows us to do this essentially. And then also is top of mind, Ben, is I'm just thinking about we just want our members, our community to have access to the most relevant conversation, the most cutting edge stuff that's happening on the East Coast,
100%.
And so we need and are excited, as we're lining up guests to provide the right people spotlight that keeps our members in the know, that keeps our network in the know,
Right.
And excited about the right things, because there's just the East Coast specifically, man. I mean, just being outsiders, we really didn't know how much was here until you meet like the Seafair Corp guys, and you meet guys that are doing all the different things in aerospace. A lot of really smart engineers walking in here with fully patented ideas.
Right. Right.
And they just need those other components.
Yep.
To make it happen. And so.
Yep.
I don't know, man. What do you envision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you hit it. I mean, so much of what makes a company and defines a founder is not what happens after they succeed. It's everything that they do on the way. It's all the lessons that they learn on the way, the stuff you don't see on the website. Right. It's the hard lessons learned. It's all those things. And I think it's really important too. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about this, that people love to get around you when you've had the victory, right? When you've had your victory, you've won, you've hit the pinnacle of whatever, blah, 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 blah. Very few people celebrate you on the way. Very, very few people come around you and learn from you in the journey, right? I think that's where your most valuable content is, and your most valuable lessons are, and the best education is walking with people who have ventured, right? Who have just said, hey, there's something I want to try. Yeah. And the people that just kind of go for it in this life. And there's so many lessons that are learned there. And I, my hope with this podcast is that those are the stories that we can uncover. That's the stuff that we can pull out of our guests to share with our viewers, to share with our listeners, to say, hey, look, this was my idea, but even to get to this idea was a struggle. I had to go through this, and this to get here, and that's when I was just getting started, And then, so what's beautiful about that is that it makes everybody real. You know what I mean?
Right.
It makes everything. I mean, everything. These are just people, right? We're just people. Our listeners are just people, and everyone's got this, ideas of things that they want to do, ways they want to venture out in their life, whether they're starting a business or they're doing something else. And I think that listening to stories of people going for it, and the struggle, and also the happy and the goofiness, all the other things that happen.
Yeah,
I think that it allows us to learn a lot. That's how you learn from each other. It's that rawness, that authenticity in conversation. Where the walls are down. We're not here to impress anyone, and we can just have honest, open conversation. I think that's where a lot of people are going to learn the most.
Right, man. And in those open conversations, I think listeners and other people in the network that are connected to these founders, and I think that opens up the opportunity to maybe hear a problem that they can solve for the founder.